Mike here from Bikes by Mike with another cycling related video. Today is my mid-year update to see whether taking NMN supplements has any noticeable impact on my endurance and cycling performance. Okay, let's get to it. Now, I love digging into the data, so we're going to look at my power numbers, my heart rate data, and other performance and health metrics in a minute. And spoiler alert, my fitness has improved slightly this year. My FTP is up a few watts and my endurance has been good on longer rides. But the million-dollar question is, can I attribute any of this to NMN? Before I talk about my specific health fitness highs and lows, let's quickly look at my exercise and training load over the course of the year, as it needs to be considered in the context of the good and the bad data that follows. By the way, if you haven't checked out my initial video on NMN, you may want to watch that one first. My basic training plan at the start of the year was to increase the number of hours I trained per week from around 10 to 12 hours I did in previous years to between 12 and 15 hours this year. I'd be increasing the volume and intensity throughout the year, peaking around August and September for 3 specific goal events. So how did this all turn out? Well, I just barely met my goal, averaging 11.75 hours per week. We'll round that up to 12. Both my training time and intensity was lower in the early part of the season, but then increased throughout the year, and then dropped in September and October as I planned. If we look at my yearly totals, I have clocked more miles and more training volume than in any of my previous years. And there's still 2 months remaining this year, so the gap will grow even further. For most of the year, I was able to build in productive, progressive training blocks followed by easier recovery weeks. I did have several weeks where I was just maintaining my fitness, but that's fine for me as it reduces my risk of burnout while allowing me to keep the fitness I have. I did have some unproductive months in the first half of the year, mainly due to reduction in training volume. But this part towards the end of the year was more concerning. It's an indication to me that not only was I strained, but just as I did in my previous year, I was overreaching and risking even overtraining. Now, I did get sick twice during this part of the year where I caught near back-to-back viruses. So that also had a big impact on my state of recovery and overall fitness. And there were other indicators that suggested I had to start easing off on my training, like my persistently poor HRV scores and an inability to motivate myself to put in a heavy training load. Just a reminder that I've been taking 250 milligrams of NMN for 6 months now. Despite Arkwell supplying the supplements to me free of charge, all the content, analysis, and opinions, and the results you see in this series are entirely my own. I chose Arkwell for a variety of reasons, but the main reason was that I could be 100% sure of the purity of what I was taking. What I like about Arkwell is that they test everything they produce in-house and also independently by a third party. A lot of supplement companies do not do that. Plus, their production facility is GMP compliant as approved by the Government of Canada. If you're interested in trying NMN or any of the other Arkwell supplements and you'd like to support this channel, please use the affiliate link in the description below. This allows me to earn a small commission on the sale and it costs you absolutely nothing. It's a great way to keep Bikes by Mike rolling. And you can use the coupon code Bikes by Mike to get 20% off your purchase. Now that we've looked at my training calendar for this year, it's time to peek into the data, starting with a couple health metrics: resting heart rate and sleep score. In my opinion, resting heart rate measured as a nighttime average is the single best health metric you can look at to assess your current state of health and readiness to train. Experts say that an elevated heart rate ranging from 2 to 10 beats per minute indicates possible overtraining, non-training stressors, or even sickness. But for me, anything over 3 beats per minute above my normal average usually means I'm in no condition to go hard. So a resting heart rate between 48 and 50 is a signal that I'm well recovered, but over 52 beats per minute means something is off. For most of the year, my resting heart rate was in the healthy range, particularly at the time I started taking NMN. But as the year progressed, and especially come September and October when I was showing other signs of overreaching, my resting heart rate was above normal week over week. The second health measure I'll mention is my sleep score. Most experts agree that the single best way to recover from stress, whether from training or just life stress, is to get enough sleep and good quality sleep. Even though I had pretty intense training blocks throughout this year, I still maintain pretty good and consistent sleep scores in the 80s. But when September and October came along, the signs of burnout showed up with my sleep scores consistently in the 70s, which is not good for me. Time to look at whether my cycling endurance improved during the year. As I mentioned in my first video, I want to see if supplementing with NMN improves two specific aspects of my aerobic fitness. The first is my aerobic endurance, also referred to as Zone 2 power or LT1. I tested this in a somewhat controlled way through low-intensity indoor training rides on my kicker bike. You can see from this chart that I've mostly selected rides ranging in duration from 2.5 to 3 hours. I've included my training stress score and intensity factor to show that the workouts were quite similar in both work performed and the intensity of the cardio. My results in terms of average power and average heart rate are also listed. But the most useful metric to assess whether my aerobic endurance is improving is the efficiency factor, a simple calculation of your average power divided by your average heart rate. An increasing EF shows that you're producing more power at the same effort, which is a sign that aerobic conditioning is improving. When I plot the efficiency factor for one endurance ride I did in each of the first 10 months of the year, I do see a trend that is at least partly explained by my training phases, where I spent the first 5 months in base training. This was also the time I started taking NMN. June and July was my build phase, where I wanted to increase my weekly stress load, primarily by adding higher intensity sessions. August and September was my specialty phase, where I prepared for 3 specific races. Grand Fondos in early August and early September, and an 8-hour solo mountain bike race at the end of September. And finally, from now until the end of the year, I'll be in my off season where I'll let my body recover and spend a lot more time in unstructured exercises. So apart from the burnout I experienced in the latter part of the year, generally my aerobic performance did improve throughout the year. This is also what my Garmin endurance score shows me, having reached my peak fitness in the month of August. It was just a modest improvement in endurance throughout this year, but going in the right direction. Plus, improvements in Zone 2 efficiency happen a lot slower than threshold power. It takes months and years to improve aerobic endurance, where one can see improvements in VO2 max over a much shorter period of time, like just a few weeks. Plus, I'm old and decrepit, so not going backwards is a win for me. The second aspect of my aerobic fitness I wanted to improve was my threshold power, which many people call Zone 3 power or LT2. I did an FTP ramp test on March 26th of this year and recorded my best ever FTP of 274.5 watts. This was before I started taking NMN. On November 2nd, I did a second FTP test, which came in at 279 watts. Sure, that's just a 2% increase in FTP, but I feel totally cooked this month, so my November result is better than I expected. I really should have done another test in August when I was peaking. So I had 3 main goal events targeted for this year, all in the latter part of the season. The first was the Blue Water International Grand Fondo held in Sarnia, Ontario. This is Canada's second largest fondo that always sells out early and maxes out at 1,500 riders. Probably the best organized Grand Fondo I've ever done, with tons of volunteers, a couple of marshals on motorbikes, great on and off course support, and stuff to do in the event village. While I didn't set any PRs, I felt strong throughout the 150K course and finished 5th overall and 2nd in my age group. My second event was the County Grand Fondo held in Picton, Ontario. This is also a popular event, although not as well supported as the Blue Water Fondo. The conditions were tough that day as it was windy and we had quite a bit of rain midway through the course. Plus, for me, I cooked myself trying to stay with the lead group and then found myself alone in no man's land for 44 kilometers. But my fitness was really good that day as I recorded an average normalized power of 193 watts for 4.5 hours, which was good enough for 15th place overall. My last event was the epic 8-hour mountain bike race in Barrie, Ontario. This is always a great race with tons of riders competing in multiple different categories.
Go, go, go! Woo! Go, Mike! Go! Woo!
The vibe is awesome and you get lots of support.
Go, Mike!
I rode in the solo category, which always hurts a lot.
Coming in for...
It was hot throughout the day and I had a hard time staying hydrated. So I ended up with my calves and hip flexors cramping up several times during the last 2 hours of the race. I felt totally depleted by the end. But I was happy with my performance, having completed 130 kilometers in 7 hours and 15 minutes, which was good enough for 5th place in my age group. So, do I think supplementing with NMN improved my aerobic fitness? I guess the short answer is, I just don't know. Subjectively, if I'm being honest, I don't feel any different now than before I was taking NMN. There was no magic moment where I started taking it and suddenly felt like I had gained a major boost. And when I look at the data, while the trend is positive, there's no clear spike or change that lines up perfectly with when I started taking the supplement. It could just be my training, better sleep, diet, or any number of factors that cause my overall aerobic fitness to be quite good. It's impossible to isolate NMN as the cause. And that brings me to an important point about supplements in general, which can be a tough thing to wrap your head around. Even for supplements that are scientifically proven to work, their effects are often so subtle that you and me as users might not be able to definitively feel them or see their effects in our data. The effect may be there, but it may be so small as to get lost in the day-to-day noise of training and life. I was watching a video on the RP YouTube channel, and Dr. Mike explained what I'm trying to say better than how I just did now. He's talking about a recent study that showed that creatine does not cause greater muscle growth. This study was a head scratcher because creatine is probably the most researched and validated sports supplement on the planet. Anyways, he focused on creatine here, but the concept he's introducing can also apply to other supplements like NMN.
So far, creatine is one of the most well-vetted supplements and actually builds muscle from multiple studies, not just water weight. But here's the thing, creatine does not build a ton of muscle. It is not like weight training, and it is not like steroids, and it's not like eating a good diet high in protein, getting lots of sleep. It's a much smaller effect than that. And it takes months to pack on enough muscle for you to really notice. So some studies, because of this very low effect magnitude of creatine, just by chance through statistical noise, even though creatine is under the hood actually effective, some studies will find that it's not effective simply because it has such a small effect. If your friend is the funniest person of all time, a 5-minute conversation with most people will reveal to them that, okay, at least he's really funny. If your friend is really low-key funny, a lot of people interacting once won't pick up on that and be like, this guy's not funny. But you're like, trust me, you get to know him, he's really funny. Well, that's multiple samples. So every now and again, a study about creatine will conclude that it doesn't do anything simply because it just doesn't do a whole lot. If creatine did a ton, almost every study would find something.
So what's next? I'm only halfway through my 1-year study, so I have a ways to go before I can judge for myself whether NMN worked for me. And as of October 23rd, I've increased my dosage from 250 to 500 milligrams per day. This higher dose I really feel is the starting point to where I might see some noticeable benefits. I'll be back in 1 year to crunch the data and give you my final impressions. That's all I got for today, folks. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe as allow me to produce more content for all of you. See you next time. Happy rolling.